January 1985, somewhere in middle America, a man named Gary walks out of a bank, a signed mortgage in his hand and a grin on his face. He earns $22,000 a year working a factory floor in Ohio. He just bought a 3-bedroom house for $78,000. That same evening, he fills up his car for $11, picks up a week's worth of groceries for $40, and still has money left over to take his family out to dinner on Friday night. Gary isn't rich. Gary is just normal. That was the deal. Work hard, earn honest, and America takes care of the rest. Now meet someone else. Same age, same city, working 2 jobs, a combined income of $68,000 a year, and yet they cannot afford to buy a home. They cannot afford to save. They are one unexpected bill away from collapse. What happened between 1985 and 2026 isn't just inflation. It isn't just the economy. It is a quiet, systematic unraveling of a promise that was made to every working American. And the numbers tell a story that most politicians would rather you never do the math. Let's start with the paycheck. In 1985, the median household income in the United States was approximately $22,000 per year. By 2026, that number has risen to roughly $80,000. On the surface, that looks like progress. That looks like nearly 4 times the income in 4 decades. But here is where the story turns dark. That salary did not grow in a vacuum. Everything else grew faster. And when you hold those numbers against the actual cost of living, you don't find progress. You find a slow-motion economic trap that was decades in the making. In 1985, the median home price in America was approximately $82,000. A worker earning the median salary could, with reasonable effort, save for a down payment and own their home within a few years. That was the architecture of the American middle class. By 2026, that same median home price has crossed $420,000. That is a 500% increase. Salaries, meanwhile, have grown by roughly 350% over the same period. The gap between what Americans earn and what it costs to own a roof over their head has never been wider in the post-World War II era. An entire generation has been locked out of home ownership, not because they are lazy, not because they didn't try, but because the math was changed on them while they weren't looking. And for those who cannot buy, renting is no longer the affordable alternative it once was. In 1985, the average monthly rent across major U.S. cities sat at roughly $350, a manageable expense for someone earning a middle-class income. In 2026, that national average has surged past $1,700 per month. In cities like New York, San Francisco, Austin, and Miami, the numbers are closer to $3,000 and beyond. This means that millions of Americans are now spending 40 to 50% of their take-home income simply on rent. The federal guideline, the long-standing rule that housing costs should never exceed 30% of your income, is now a relic, a number from a different America. An America that quietly stopped existing somewhere between the tax cuts of the 1980s and the corporate consolidation of the 2000s. Then there was the grocery store. In 1985, a family of 4 could leave a supermarket with a full week of food for approximately $50. Meat, produce, dairy, bread, the basics. Enough to cook real meals 7 days a week. By 2026, that same basket of goods costs an average of $250, a 500% increase. And unlike the housing crisis, where people can theoretically choose where they live, food offers no such option. You cannot opt out of eating. The explosion in grocery costs has hit lower and middle-income families the hardest, and it has done so at a moment when those families already have less margin than at any point in modern American history. Here is perhaps the most staggering data point in this entire story. The federal minimum wage in the United States stands at $7.25 per hour. It has not moved a single cent since 2009. 17 years of frozen wages at the very bottom. If the minimum wage had kept pace with inflation since 1980, it would sit at over $13 today. If it had kept pace with worker productivity, the actual output of American labor, economists estimate it would be closer to $24 per hour. Instead, it remains frozen. While grocery bills doubled, while rents tripled, while home prices exploded, the floor of the American economy has not moved in nearly 2 decades, and the people standing on it have been sinking. The American dream was never meant to be a luxury. It was meant to be a standard, a baseline expectation for anyone willing to show up, work hard, and play by the rules. What the numbers reveal, from salaries to home prices, from grocery bills to rent, is that the rules themselves were rewritten. Not in one dramatic moment, not in a single crisis, Slowly, quietly, across 4 decades of policy decisions, corporate mergers, wage suppression, and financial deregulation that consistently benefited those at the top and transferred the cost downward to everyone else. Gary, back in 1985, wasn't lucky. He was living inside a system that was designed deliberately to let him succeed. Today's worker isn't failing. They are navigating a system that was, just as deliberately, redesigned around them while they were busy working. The American dream didn't die overnight. It was priced out of existence, and the invoice has been quietly handed to the working class. One rent hike, one grocery run, one mortgage rejection at a time.